It's time.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
The host unmuted us, so I guess. Oh,
Oh, hey.
it's time.
We're allowed to talk now.
Yeah. Yeah, we get to talk, not be awkwardly on mute anymore. Amazing. Let's go. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Commerce Week and an event hosted by DEPT. And we just wanted to quick introduce ourselves so that you understand who you're talking to today. And then we're excited to share some thoughts with you. Here we go.
Cool. Hey, everyone. I'm Alexis Stepanek, pronoun she, they, and I am one of the amazing strategy directors at Basic DEPT.
And my name is Steve, pronouns he, him. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Basic DEPT, and I'm also the SVP of Creative at DEPT, if the glasses were not a giveaway. But we're presenting to you today from San Diego. We wanted to quickly go through this deck and then open up to some questions and conversations for us. We always approach these moments as conversationals. And so this will be a moment to have a nice little chat with you all. And we wanted to just set the stage with empathy and understanding for each and every one of you who is watching, listening, working within the industry today, especially within the commerce industry. There are so many issues that you're facing. And at the end of the day, what you're also being presented with on a daily basis is new technologies, new ways to connect to folks. And obviously, this talk is about AI and artificial intelligence and what that offers us. And in that world today, it can be very complex. Alexis and I talk about it daily, and almost every day we're talking about something different or something new. So with that said, we did want to surface some issues that we're seeing, because your world is far more complex than ever before. I don't think we see that slowing down anytime soon. We know that there has been a revolution when it comes to technology, and that revolution is now becoming very potent in the space of commerce. And when we look a little bit, if we double click into these issues, we wanted to bring out some of the things that you might potentially be facing on a daily basis. So, hard to identify insights, like what insights matter. At the end of the day, what are we doing with artificial intelligence? Do we have a tech stack that enables us to do that? A lot of times bureaucracy within your organizations don't necessarily enable you to create the change that you're hoping to create. Data siloed, you sit in more meetings than actually are taking advantage of time to progress things forward. And I always say this because of consensus. I think consensus is ultimately one of the biggest challenges that you all face today is the fact that we're watering down what we can potentially do to make sure that everybody feels okay. At the end of the day, what these issues are for you is the enemy of progress. And progress is something that if we actually look to who we're trying to impact and who we're trying to build relationships with, that's your customers. And your customers at the end of the day are becoming increasingly more frustrated because they're seeing the advantages that technology is offering them, but then not feeling that intentionality of that technology coming into their commerce experiences.
Yeah, and so we're seeing almost like 3/4 of consumers having to go to multiple channels to figure out just one answer to one question, trying to research what product is going to fit their needs best. And that's a lot of work and friction on the consumer just to purchase something from your brand.
Yeah. And this is a hard reality for you all. It's like folks aren't going to your site and getting all the information they want. they're having to connect dots.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, what that is creating for our customers is this sort of inefficiency in being able to search for the answers that they need. There isn't relevant information that they're being surfaced. There is a lack of personalization. There's clunky experience design, but then I think to actually play that up another way too is a lot of our commerce experiences look identical to the next one. So nobody really understands why they would convert on one platform versus another, or why would they convert with your brand versus another brand. And like Alexis said, these shopping experiences are completely disconnected. We're making people work hard to get the answers they need. That's ultimately the enemy of conversion. And 9 times out of 10, when we're working on e-commerce platforms, the number one KPI that folks are trying to drive is conversion. And so how do you enable your business to drive conversion? And I think that's what primarily this talk is centered around, is helping you create a more a better e-commerce experiences that allows people to hit the buy button. Here's a reality, and there's multiple different sort of inputs to this statement, but currently e-commerce will only increase by 8.9% this year. Obviously, the pandemic played part in these numbers, but for us, we took a look at this data and just wanted you all to understand that this data is a signal more than anything else. And so what is that signal? Well, it's a signal to the traditional ways of us doing things are holding us back. So if you're in an organization that is having a hard time understanding or embracing change or embracing new technology, or who's marred, like I said earlier, around like tech stacks that aren't serving your organization well, that's holding you back, and traditional ways of thinking are holding us back as well. You want to dive into some truths?
Let's do it. Let's talk about the truths that we're facing. Right now, it feels like everyone's really chasing technology. Companies are really focused on, the next new thing, the shiny object, versus really understanding what outcomes you're trying to deliver with that technology.
I always joke with Alexis because it's like everybody was chasing the metaverse, and then all of a sudden nobody's talking about the metaverse. But now we're talking about the metaverse again.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really important truth to understand.
Sure. Second truth, your brand isn't actually yours. It's actually everyone's, because without consumers, you wouldn't exist. And the third truth, people are dynamic. We can't be grouped into a box, despite our marketing team's efforts to do so. We always try. But at the end of the day, we're more multifaceted than I think we give our consumers credit for.
Yeah. And what we wanted to do is take these truths and then offer you takeaways in terms of like, what is that path forward for you all? When it comes to chasing technology, what we think and understand is that technology needs to be intentional. You need to be looking at the needs of your business and the needs of your customer, and using technology to enable you to solve those issues, not just jump onto something that you think might work. No, let's actually get down there and get strategic and really understand what we need to do. Secondly, is culture is creating the content that they want. You're watching it, you're seeing it, it's all over the place. Every single platform in the world is shoppable at this point. From TikTok to YouTube, everything is shoppable. All the humans in the world are creating the content that they want.
And it's interesting because the content that they're creating on TikTok, when they're sharing product recommendations, oftentimes that the way that they're showing product adding value into their individual lives is pretty different than like what's on your PDP. And so there's kind of this disconnect. So they're actually thinking about how they want to communicate and what they want to know before they buy.
Yeah, I love that. And at the end of the day, what we do know about consumers is that they want to be understood. It's one of the most important aspects moving forward. And often when I do talks on culture at large and thinking about the new consumers coming into the marketplace, that is Gen Z, one of the things that they need is belonging and understanding. Nobody likes to be misunderstood. And so how can we evolve? How can we use that insight or that truth as energy to evolve our commerce experiences to then tune them in for your consumers? And if we did a little bit of research and wanted to again surface what consumers expect from brands and from commerce experiences. First, they want it to be easy. And this is all from the Global Web Index. So they want it to be easy. They want to be able to find what they need. They want it to be relevant, and they want recommendations. They want the message tailored to them in some way, shape, or form. I think we're excited to show you the ways that we solve for that. And then they want targeted promotions. They want folks to understand that, hey, I'm looking for this thing. Give me what I need. Now, we're at a point where I think a lot of you are like, yeah, we've heard this, we've seen this. But for us, there is this sort of tension, because with all of that said, where do we start for those of you who haven't been able to progress or move things forward, who are stuck in sort of like a place of talking about it? You don't necessarily know where to start, and who do I trust? Who can help me along on this journey? And so what we wanted to do is offer you our perspective and DEPT's perspective on how you can start and how you can trust technology to really amplify and create a commerce experience that is truly for your users. So step one, we see it as starting with technology that understands. At the end of the day, we sort of talked about it earlier, but 71% of consumers expect some sort of personalization. In that, 76% are more likely to purchase with brands that personalize. And for you all, I think the most important piece of data here is that 40% more revenue can be generated through that personalization. So that's huge numbers, just by enabling your organization and commerce platform to be more personal for your customers. And I don't know, how long have we been talking about personalization?
Years, it feels like. And the thing is like this word has become this like butchered definition because of the limitations of technology so far. So when we say like 76% of customers are more likely to purchase when it's personalized or tailored to them, we're still talking about those like large swaths of marketing segments. It's not actually true to the original definition. So we want to move away from it being like this empty buzzword and talking about what its actual definition is and making sure we can align that to reality. Yeah.
I've been hearing the word personalization for so long, and it has felt so incredibly empty. I think, and that's been the primary conversation that we've been having, not only at Basic but also at DEPT, is the fact that the way we see it is personalization has this force behind it today that for you all, you never have to force folks through that fragmented journey ever again. And personalization can actually live up to the definition of what it is moving forward because of the technology and the intelligence that we have today.
Because when technology understands us, we can make those meaningful connections. We're not going to have to go to 3 or 4 different websites because of, the lack of answers across the board, or getting an advertisement for a shoe that I already bought like a week ago. Like, we can think about how we understand someone on a more one-on-one level. And I think we do that by honoring the nuances of each human.
Yeah.
So understanding that everyone is going to be a little bit different, right? So even in large marketing segments, like 3 different people are going to look vastly different. They care about different things. They're going to have different values. Some people care more about family. Some people care more about social, et cetera. And so we want to think about what that means when we offer them a branded experience, but we also want to think about what type of branded content is going to resonate with them based on those interests. So thinking more about commerce focused, thinking about they would just want to get through the conversion funnel, or maybe they're a community based person. And so they really want to think about, what does it look like to be a part of this brand? And the nuances of each human, I think, are so interesting and important, because from a personal standpoint, I've experienced this with the frustration of not having the recognition of being more multifaceted. Because last winter I decided to reupholster some mid-century modern furniture, putting my art school skills to use. And I didn't really know where to start, because it was, a different technique. So I went to YouTube, fell down the rabbit hole. And as I was finishing the project, I reopened my computer, went to YouTube for something completely different. And I got this weird pop-up, and it asked me to confirm my demographics with like some multiple choice questions, but it was very clear that the algorithm had changed based on the content that I was watching, and it thought that I was like a retired male. And I was like, no, that's not me. Why can't I just be interested in furniture design? Like, why do I need to fit into some box that you think, is for an individual? And so we also know that we adapt over time. We all change over time with life milestones. Maybe you have a kid, you have a family, yearly seasons, things change, your needs change based on how hot or cold it might be. And new passion projects too. So with the evolution of identity and our needs, like that all has to be embraced and not questioned or assumed. So that change can be broad, maybe affecting our values, our interests as a whole, or it could be more micro-focused on thinking about what you need in that moment in your traditional purchase funnel. So thinking about, does someone need really in-depth content to feel educated and aware of what the product offers, or are they more focused on purchasing, or again, back to that community example? So each time they visit your site, those needs could change, and the weight of the content should also evolve with that.
And the second step in terms of like, where do we start, who do we trust, is that you support your brand with intelligent systems. And these are things that we've been able to understand, and like, what can we do today? What can we do in a year? What can we do in 3 years? But it ultimately starts with these intelligent systems. When it comes to what we know about folks that have a more mature personalization strategy, is that they are earning more revenue compared to other companies who aren't using that personalization strategy. And I will go back to what Alexis says. This data does not take into account how we're seeing artificial intelligence being able to personalize. So this is like base level, just sort of like your standard personalization today. Whereas we're going to walk through some examples of where we see personalization actually and artificial intelligence coming together that will drive this whole, I would say, this number through the roof.
For sure. And I think it's important to think about, like, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? If it's already generating 4 times the revenue with the investments people are making, with the technology available, like right now, to Steve's point, it's going to skyrocket. So I think it's really worth thinking about, like, how do we make sure we're not, being weighed down by technical debt? And how do we think about our brand's growth and scaling over time? How do we invest in that?
In our world, we feel like generative AI is the differentiator in personalization. And and this is from our perspective, not going to make an assumption about all of you, but from our perspective, this is where AI is incredibly important. In terms of what we've been seeing and most of what we've been reading and seeing online is that when folks are talking about generative AI, they're talking about it in terms of efficiencies. And all of this is true and relevant and things that you have to operationalize within your brand today. Yes, AI can design. Yes, it can allow you to make, product shots really easy. It can write, it can translate. All of those things are true. All of those things help, but at the end of the day, does it make the content more meaningful? And to us, this is where we truly need to actually reframe the conversation is to the fact that generative AI has given technology language. And I think for us, it goes back to the main point in step one, which is that idea of understanding. Alexis told a story about, having an experience that completely misunderstood who they were. And ultimately that is not indicative of what we see possible with AI moving forward. To us, what we see as, let's move beyond the efficiency conversation and let's start talking about the fact that AI can enable your brand to have conversations with your customer, allows you to react to their needs, and allows you to be able to evolve with your customers and tailor your content that you have been populating, that you have, and evolve that and meet your customers where they're at. You want to drive in?
Yeah. And so when we think about what is the future and how do we kind of how are we confident that this is going to kind of become part of it? Well, proof's in the pudding a little bit. We look at the evolution of technology trendiness in a way that we can rethink what website platforms offer. And we believe the future of brand experience is really going to be rooted in this notion of concept management systems. And so it's about looking at AI not from that efficiency standpoint, because I think everyone's a little bit scared that oh, AI, it's coming for my jobs. It's going to be the end of humanity. Well, we think AI has the power to actually amplify some of that humanity when used in the right ways. And so we think concept management systems could be one way of doing that.
Yep.
What is that? What is a concept?
Wait.
Well, it's made up of 3 core ingredients, and that is the consumer dynamic profiles. And so it's looking at large language models that are going to give us insight based on behaviors and patterns, not only from the consumer itself, but also just cultural and general knowledge, the internet as a huge database, essentially. Yeah. And the second is your brand framework. So your brand and product data, all of the good stuff that you've worked on building over the course of your business, can be paired with that individual personality of your brand. So thinking about brand guidelines, messaging, product inventory, what's your visual system look like? And then how does that kind of play with a notion of a bespoke brand large language model? So we talked about general large language models, but then we think that there is an opportunity to create a branded one that is really going to power personalized experiences and allow recommendations and semantic search, entity extraction, all of that good stuff. And so taking a look at kind of what it's complex, right? So let's simplify it.
And just say, I made this chart this morning because I was like, wait, we sort of have to show what that means. So starting with those dynamic customer needs, using your bespoke large language model, the LLM, and data that you've mined and creating more of this intelligent ecosystem that we're calling the concept management system to take those needs, take your data, combine that together and output that into your commerce platforms, into your marketing, and then allowing that whole ecosystem to effectively generate more data, more knowing, and then it just becomes like a circular sort of economy that you can create within your organization. Anything else you would say to that?
No, I think that's great.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. I think we did it. I mean, we might have oversimplified it a little bit, but we'll answer questions at the end.
It's so true. This is the truth. And this is, if you take away one thing from today, and I think this was the unlock for Alexis and I and all the folks that were helping us with this presentation and talk, is the fact that AI is actually personalization. And the definition and the way we've been talking about personalization for the last how many years is now a true reality. And I think what we wanted to do was not just talk to you about it, but watch it in action. So I'm gonna let Alexis show you some of the work that the team and herself put together.
Sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's all about making theory reality. And this is just, as I mentioned earlier, just the tip of the iceberg, right? So these are some examples of how things could potentially come to life across a few different industries. So the first industry that we're going to take a look at is hospitality and travel. Cool. And let's say currently today we've got two shoppers, same segmentation, perhaps they're both females, mid-30s, same household income, they're both moms of two under the age of 10, they both work full-time. So from a marketing segmentation, they look and feel pretty similar, if not identical. But taking a closer look, they have really distinct needs and behaviors, as we all know, because we're humans and we're dynamic ourselves.
That's true.
So that first person might have a more adventurous and spontaneous mindset. Maybe they care more about cost, value, and rewards, and they want to travel with their family. And then we also have to think about the purchase intent, where they are in the purchase funnel. Maybe they haven't selected a location yet, but they're looking for options and inspiration. Person two is a little bit more research and planning focused. They're not, about to just say, sure, drop a pin on the map and I'll go there. They want to make sure that it's going to cater to all their needs, and they prioritize relaxation time. And maybe they're exhausted from being a mom and they want time away from the kids. So that vacation is going to look very different than a vacation you take with your family. And perhaps they know general location, but they haven't found the exact hotel that they want to stay at yet. So what that could kind of come to life is two very different experiences that are catering to those individual needs. So on the left, we're seeing a prototype that is more focused on a road trip. So they're spontaneous. They want to take a weekend road trip with their family. And we know their location. And so we can say, hey, within 6 hours, which is a reasonable drive in a day, here are some really fun locations, and we can give you activities along the way as you make your way to our hotel. And then alternatively, if we know that they are looking more for an escapism moment, and that they're already researching Mykonos, we can help them choose the right hotel for them to stay at based on spa services and drink and food recommendations and things like that. So we can get really tailored with it. And as you can see, they're both pretty similar design systems, but we're just customizing text to be more catered to them. So local adventure based on road trip preference. We know that they've taken road trips in the past, versus, we know that they need a relaxing vacation. So we can swap out that text with our LLM, and then have imagery that really caters to those needs again. So placing the person into the scene for their inspiration. Second industry,
Oh, I love this one.
sport commerce. So again, two shoppers in the same segmentation of today. They're late 20s, similar household income. They're both active and sporty. They purchase gear 2 to 3 times a year, depending on, usage and what's coming out and new. So they look pretty similar, but they have, again, very different motivations and behaviors. Our first person is maybe viewing sport more as like a social community. Maybe they play on a bunch of different teams, so they're involved in a lot of different types of sports. And they care a lot about appearance as a part of their identity, and that translates into like the athleisure vibe. So their purchase intent's probably just around like new collabs, product drops, like they're aware, they have the push notifications, they get the emails. And so they're more of that impulse buyer, excited about when those moments hit. Person two, sport and fitness is their identity. They are an athlete. Performance is that number one driver. They're really focused maybe on one specific sport, and then they cross-train to help support that. But they're really focused on craft and detail in the product. So their purchase intent is really looking for like replacements of worn out gear or anything new that's going to like really help them elevate their game. So when we look at how that translates to a different kind of framework and different content library, we see that for the lifestyle focused, you can try it on, get outfit recommendations. So we offer different types of features. It's not just different types of content, but perhaps we can introduce different feature sets as well. And then for the more performance, thinking about how we can do hotspots on the product to really show what fine-tuned performance looks like. And again, how does that, how do we use pretty similar design systems of the brand to swap in and out content? So obviously imagery curation based on product interest, emotional resonance is important. And then just thinking about content that really tells the story that they're, interested in. So collaboration, overall vibe, drive desire, et cetera, versus performance is really going to be about every detail to inspire confidence in that purchase. And then the third, digital product commerce. So we looked at more perhaps passive ways of user data being involved. And so that was more something like we're gathering data and bringing it to life for the consumer so they don't have to like be so actively involved. But also another way of using generative AI is that more active approach. It can actually be directly conversational. So we explored that route through digital product offerings like audiobooks. So looking at two shoppers that would be potentially similar, maybe they're mid-40s, they're married, similar household income, they both love to read, they purchase a lot of books, but then again, different when we take a closer look in. And so with this one, we wanted to be looking at even a more nuance versus like, oh, one's romance and one's horror. Like, what if they're both into horror, but then one is more into true crime? So we're thinking about subgenres and getting even more detailed with those interests. And then person two, they're interested in horror, but only when it overlaps with fantasy because they don't want it to be in reality. That spooks them a little bit. And so what that looks like when it comes to life is a chat interface where you can input what you want to know. So the person on the left, maybe they're taking a flight to Florida and they're like, hey, I need a recommendation for my flight. We know their current location or we know their home base as well from like billing address. And so we know Florida is probably a 6-hour flight-ish, right, from wherever they live. And so we can suggest books that are right under that, like 5 hours, 30 minutes for them to enjoy on that plane ride.
I love that.
And then this person on the right, who's more fantasy focused, is taking a cross-country road trip. And so they want a collection of books to start with, perhaps a series that's going to take them across the country and they can just really get immersed in this like fantasy world. And then kind of calling out some of these nuances, you can micro filter based on user input. So Mindhunter was suggested as the book to listen to on your plane ride, but you're like, ooh, wait, that looks like it might be too intense for me. I don't want to be scared on my flight. I get anxiety flying. And so we can respond and say, great, let's filter out any books that maybe have a plane crash or anything that might, trigger you.
Yes.
And focus on like cheap thrills to keep you entertained. And then, when you're presented with a collection of different books and different series, it's hard to know where to start, like which book do you start with? And so we can help, with that recommendation and keep them entertained.
Awesome.
Ultimately, it's one brand, one site, a lot of different experiences.
Yeah. And it goes back to these truths that we brought up earlier, is where, folks want to be part of your brand. They want the content tailored to themselves. And so how do you create an experiences that is tailored to them? And I think these are just the tip of the iceberg. For any of you that want to dive in a little bit deeper and talk specifically about your brand and ideas for how you could employ some of this thinking or these ideas into your experience today, we'd love to have those conversations with you. I think we've got a couple of questions that might talk about that. And
you might be asking yourself.
yeah, and then there's
questions.
like some other questions that you might be asking yourself. So we'll get to your questions in the chat in a second, but we did want to then surface sort of what we consider like elephants in the room, maybe a little bit. Okay,
100%.
cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about those elephants in the room.
Cool.
You're probably being like, how much content do I need to create? It's like already difficult to produce all the content that needs to go on my site with every product launch. And so we actually don't see it as way more content than you're already producing. We just need a strong design framework. So the ability to swap things in and out, those specific brand guidelines. So that personality, that look and feel, that can be applied throughout our design system. And then that intent engine that's really going to pair the insights from the consumer and where they are in that purchase journey with that generative AI model to essentially provide that experience.
It's not as scary as we think.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
But things that can feel scary, privacy, data ethics.
100%.
And we want to make sure that when we're exploring emerging technology, we're doing it intentionally and with thought to make sure that as best we can, the intent matches the potential impact.
Yep.
So there's 3 core themes that we think about from a data ethics perspective. First is non-discrimination. So thinking about like, okay, what are these different data points that we're collecting? And how can that potentially cause negative experiences? So taking a closer look at what those inputs are to really make sure that we aren't accidentally making wrongful assumptions about someone in a way that's harmful.
Cool.
Second is user autonomy. So giving people the ability to choose to opt in.
Yep.
Maybe they've opted in and they want to opt out. Maybe they want to alter their dynamic profiles. Maybe they're like, hey, you don't totally understand me. I actually think I'm more like this, and this is the experience that I want. So how can they actually update their own settings of who their identity is in relation to the brand? So
we like brands embracing decentralization in a lot of ways and giving folks control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw there was a question in the chat about like, how do you find the right balance between like delivering personalized recommendations versus like discovery and just like exploration? And I think that is tied a little bit to the user autonomy. Is like we're giving them a path, but we also want to make sure that they have choice along the way. So maybe they say, hey, I want a random experience today, like show me something new and different. So there are levers to pull within that. And then within that, there's actually levers to pull within the large language model and how we structure that. So there's something that's called temperature. So you can kind of scale like how accurate you need it to be versus like how exploratory the results could be. And then the third is transparency. We want to make sure we're communicating how the data that we're gathering is actually being used and why it provides value. We don't want to be like snakes about it, right? There's a lot of data collection that's used in maybe weird ways, the terms and conditions that nobody pays attention to and just agrees to. We want to make sure that we are fully transparent in that because this is potentially going to be a new way to shop and engage with your brand. So we know that we have to like help them adjust to that.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
And I think we can go into further questions.
Yeah, we have a few questions.
Great.
I think I did want to also, if you want to look for the next one, I did want to talk about the one question that you did mention, which was, how do you find the right balance between personalized experiences and allowing for some serendipity and discovery? I think that's really amazing because you still want that element of surprise. Humans want to be surprised. It's all part of it. Like when you go to a restaurant and you have just an incredible experience with your waiter and it's surprising and you ultimately build that loyalty and connection. So this question is brands like Gucci live to surprise, and that they want people to be part of. Do they think about personalization differently? And I think in some way, shape, or form, it just means that the brief looks a little different when it comes to personalization, where Gucci might just want to lean more into the idea of concierge or guided navigation. When you walk into a Gucci store, it feels very open, very premium, and you're greeted with a representative of the Gucci who takes you to where you need to go, lets you sort of explore, but then understands when you need something, and then comes in and shows you everything that Gucci has to offer, which is a very amazing experience. So yes, we can do things like guided navigation in that moment. For us, we can more mirror the experience that you have in a physical retail store online today because of the technology that AI offers us.
Yeah. Another question came in that is building off of that, and it's about like word of mouth, right? So I tell my friend about a site and I'm like, ooh, this feature is really cool, or this product's really cool. And because they're a different individual, what if they get a totally different site experience and they're not seeing what their friend thought would resonate? And that's where we still have we've been joking internally about calling them like escape hatches, where it's allowing someone maybe to go back to like the base experience of the branded site. But there's also a way to incorporate really powerful search mechanisms that, again, we have this language model, we have this content library of all of our product data and feature data. So we can leverage search in a way that actually provides different recommendations, maybe based on different types of personalities. Yeah. So we don't have all the answers, but there's a lot of ways we think that we can explore some of this, which is exciting.
Do we have any more time for questions? What is DEPT Events telling us?
What is DEPT Events telling us? Two more. All right.
Okay.
What are some steps I can take right away to get closer to delivering this type of experience to my customers next year? I think the first, probably most important thing you can do is take an assessment of your tech stack. Yep. And tech debt is expensive for you and progression of your brand. And so it's really important to think about like where you're at and where you need to go, and make that investment to build tech for the future. Yeah.
It all starts with the infrastructure that allows your organization to be able to implement new ways of connecting to your customers. So when you can make that first initial investment, we talk a lot about headless platforms as a means to get you there. That way you can be nimble, you can react in the moment, you can allow your platform to move at the speed of culture versus having to work through years upon years of technical debt that you've created. All right. One more.
How can a brand better understand where customers are discovering your brand versus where they end up making a purchase? So the entry points, it sounds like.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, we talked a little bit about the marketing channels and how this can even feed into marketing channels. I'm sure we've all experienced this where like you have a conversation with your friends, because this is already happening from an advertising perspective. I just want to get really clear. We all joke about yelling into our phone, show me an ad for a blue dress, right? Or like you have a conversation with your friend about something and then like you get the recommendation when you get home, right? That's already happening because Google Maps is selling data. It knows who you're spending time with. It tracks credit card purchases. So it's understanding, well, we're spending some time together, so we might have shared interests. Yep. Steve just bought a new blender. Maybe she wants a new blender too. Yep. So that's already happening in the marketing realm. It's really just about, again, making sure that experience is connected throughout. And so when they land on your website, it's not fragmented like we talked about.
Yeah, for me, I think this question goes more to how does your brand show up across the entire customer journey? How are you connecting the dots? How are you telling stories? How are you creating bespoke content with that connects to them across that entire customer journey? We deal with this a lot where brands might sell their products in third-party retails, but they actually did the research on your site. And how do you equate, or how do you find that data? In a lot of ways, obviously we want to be able to understand that data, and there are ways that we can potentially do that. However, I would challenge you to just think about your ecosystem and understand what KPIs or what measures drive success on each of those platforms, and then monitor that data in an effort to understand that any person who makes and becomes loyal to your brand then becomes an ambassador for your brand in some way, shape, or form. So it's just about getting more folks into becoming more loyal to you at the end of the day.
Amazing.
I think that was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
Alexis,
thank you so much. Thank you, Sue.
This was weird. We just start looking at our little
Yeah, we can't see.
We don't see you, but thank you so much for listening. Yeah, we're excited. Hit us up with questions. If you want to follow up, I know there was a question specific to Shopify. We'd love to talk to you about all of those things and how to help you. We're here for all of it, so don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. You're the best. We like you.